There are two sides to every story. The National Broadcasting Company presents the vivid drama of life itself. Broadcasting's original program of mediation, the court of human relations. And now the man who has familiarized millions of people with the idea of mediation helped to make it a creative force in American life. A.L. Alexander.
This is a very knowing age, and certainly these are dramatic and exciting times in which to live. The world changes, the mechanics of living change, but it is perfectly apparent as you look on every side that whatever the progress in jet planes and breathless scientific advancement, there can be no substantial human progress without a sound family life, that for this there is no substitute. The most sublime and beautiful of all human institutions is the family, the affections that arise from a good family life, the mutual loves of husband and wife, of parents and children, of brothers and sisters. This constitutes the principal source of human happiness and well-being. And of course, there is no misery to compare with a home touched by discord and disharmony. Now, in this regard, you're about to witness an actual mediation proceeding in which the parties to disagreement are concealed, but are the actual persons involved and have agreed to abide by the decision of an impartial board. Today's board comprises three persons of skilled and self-reliant judgment. The famed American novelist, Miss Fannie Hurst. The noted authority on adult education and social ethics, Dr. Lloyd E. Foster. And that wise observer of the passing scene, great champion of human rights, Mr. Norman Thomas. As we turn to case 3790, it occurs to me that there are some people who are easily disturbed by the realities of human existence, but as this matter unfolds, I think you will recognize the honesty and the pathos in this situation. Now, here is the complainant.
Mr. Alexander, I'm almost afraid to speak of this, but I have decided to bring this matter out into the open after so many years.
How many years have you been married? How many years have you been married?
I've been married 30 years.
Yes. And do you have any children?
I have two lovely daughters.
And as far as the world is concerned...
I am married.
But what is the truth of the matter?
But the truth is...
What is the truth? Well, the truth is that you're not really married. Isn't that true? Isn't that true?
That's true.
I should explain to the board, and this seems hardly necessary, that this complainant is very much upset and understandably tense. What happened 30 years ago?
30 years ago, at the age of 16, I eloped and I was married.
Why did you elope?
I eloped because he said if I did not marry him, he would take a revolver and shoot me.
And were you afraid? Did you think he'd do it?
Yes, I was very much afraid.
Now, was that marriage consummated?
No, the marriage was never consummated.
You never lived with that man?
I never lived with him, and I have never heard from him or seen him since.
And then what happened?
2 years later, I met my present husband, and...
You have wonderful children?
Yes, we have two beautiful children, and as far as the rest of the world is concerned, we are married.
But you had no actual ceremony?
No, there was no actual ceremony.
Because there was a ceremony the previous time and you didn't want to have a bigamous marriage. Is that the idea?
I didn't hear you.
You didn't want to have a bigamous marriage. That means that if you married twice, you'd be in great trouble.
That's right.
and there being a previous marriage, you simply continued the relationship with this gentleman without having a ceremony.
Yes,
And how long has this relationship continued?
for 30 years.
And no one knows about this.
No one knows about this.
And you understand that you're concealed at this time and it's impossible for anybody to identify you at this time. Now, what is the situation now?
The situation now is my present husband thinks that we should let well enough alone and continue as we are. But I feel in my heart it is not right and that I should try now to do something about it.
And is it difficult for you to sleep at night?
Well, I can't sleep at night because I have no peace of mind, and I
what
have no legal documents to show that I am married to him.
Every time you mention it to your husband,
Yes.
what does he say?
He says that as far as he is concerned, that we are married, and he has never made it any different than that.
He's never done anything to change it,
No.
and you're very unhappy about it.
Yes, we're very happy married, but I would like to see it be legally married.
Yes. Your
That
heart
is the
would
problem.
your heart would feel better.
I would feel much better, and I would have peace of mind if I could have this problem brought out and rectified.
Now, how do you feel about that?
Well, I think she's making more out of it than actually should be, because all those years we've lived as happily as the average married couple, and we might stir up a hornet's nest that would involve innocent people, such as our children possibly. So I see no reason why we shouldn't just keep on going the way we are.
As we understand it, the community in which you live knows nothing about this.
That's right. They know nothing about it. No.
Relatives, your own children know nothing about it.
Particularly our own children.
Yes. And you think that it would be a dangerous and unwise thing to do.
It would be dangerous, unwise, I think. We might lose our children, I don't know, but I would hate to take that chance.
But your wife says that she doesn't have any peace of mind.
Well, would she have peace of mind if we lost our children? Or lost the affection of our children? They're grown enough now to make up their mind about it, I mean.
Well, did you tell me something about what would happen if, unfortunately, your husband passed away?
Well, if my husband passed away, God forbid I wouldn't want it to happen, but I have no legal papers to show that I have been married to him. And I feel that we really should have, we really should do something about it now.
You feel that that isn't necessary, that she's exaggerating this?
Well, I can realize a standpoint from a woman's viewpoint, but I don't know what's to be gained by it either.
Do you think you should let sleeping dogs lie?
That's right. I think we should let sleeping dogs lie and continue as we have been.
Ms. Hurst?
Well, I think you've just developed a very important point. This is a two-pronged fork. At the moment, first, I thought this was a spiritual upset, and that you felt after all these years that you wanted to write something that you felt was wrong.
You're addressing the wife now?
Yes. Now, we introduce another note, and that is the realistic note of your own security at this time of your life. That is realistic. The other, let us talk it from the first angle. I agree with your husband that you are going to cause a great upset even if you try to keep it quiet. Your children are going to be shunted into a new way of thought about you both that is going to be a shock to them. Now, is that less important to you than your peace of mind? The fact that your children may be enormously disturbed by this. Does that bother you?
Well, I was hoping that it wouldn't have to come out to light, that it could be done in such a manner that the children would not be hurt.
Well, I think you're gambling there, but let's go on from there. Now, as to your security in this matter, in the unfortunate event that anything should happen that would leave you alone, is there any other way sir, that you can think of in providing for this lady's security by placing whatever excess or fringe funds you may have in her name?
I don't think there would be any trouble along those lines of collecting any insurance, if you mean that.
Would you be willing to cover such eventualities for her protection at this time?
Well, she is covered. That's what I mean to say. I don't think there would be any trouble collecting anything that is placed, which she is a beneficiary of.
This is not a program dealing in legalities, but there are certain aspects of the common law which are general knowledge. We know that in certain states, common law marriages are still legal. In other states, they are not. But it is sound public policy that in those states where common law marriages were recognized, at the time the so-called marriage or relationship was established, that is a clear basis for the position of the wife. And it so happens that in the state that these people come from, common law marriages existed and were recognized 30 years ago when this relationship started. So in the event of a contest, it would be a very simple matter for her to make any claim that was necessary.
Well, then my brief summation is that considering the hazards and considering the span of time, if this had happened 3 years after your marriage or 5 years after your arrangement, fine. But at this time, I certainly think, so far as your children are concerned and your status in the community is concerned, the ethics of the world being what they are, that you're better off letting well enough alone.
Mr. Thomas?
I think I agree with Miss Hurst with this possible qualification. Since the lady really is distressed by the situation and doesn't have peace of mind, it seems to me that it might be possible, even now, after these 30 years, to find out whether through Enoch Arden proceedings, which would make divorce from the unconsummated first marriage easy, the situation could be cleared up, and could be cleared up quite quietly and privately. I wish I were a lawyer, then I would be in a better position to know whether that could be
You really
done.
wish you were a lawyer, Mr. Thomas?
For the moment, yes. I think I could, there are lots of things I could do as a lawyer, but I am content with what I am without being a lawyer. In this moment, I wish I were a lawyer. And I just wonder whether the risk, even with the children, would be so very great. I think that it is quite possible, especially in our time, that children, I don't know how old they are, would understand if by risk they found out, and even applaud the kind of loyalty that made their mother act as they did. I don't think we live in the time when a pure legality will wreak such woe upon the whole family, children and all. In other words, I would try to find out if there is not, without too great risk, a chance to, even now, to regularize the position through Enoch Arden Act, through some very wise counselor, perhaps acting in a different place than where you live, with the understanding that if the gamble, if it is a gamble, failed, there still would be, I think, at least as much admiration as condemnation for the kind of conscience that led the wife to want this. I must say that I am not myself deeply oppressed by the relationship. I think that in years gone by, we have talked to people who were far less truly married than these people seem to be, by every proper test of spiritual and human relationship. But the conscience of the woman and her peace of mind seem to me to have a value worth this exploratory effort that I have recommended.
Well, Dr. Foster, this exploratory effort would be tragic if it happened that in some way the fact leaked out, and then the peace of mind so eagerly sought after would no longer exist.
I believe that it should not be reopened because of the publicity that might ensue and the jeopardizing of the relationship of the daughters. I can't agree with Mr. Thomas that they would take it lightly. I think it might do emotional and spiritual damage to them. And I think that their well-being should be guarded. Now, what about the troubled conscience of this woman? That's a very important thing. I think this should be understood, that the state enacts laws requiring a man and woman living together to be married, to be legalized. But there's a higher law, and that is the law of God. And we believe, whether we are Jewish or Catholic or Protestant, that the divine being is one of forgiveness and mercy and compassion. If you will accept divine forgiveness for whatever mistake has been made, there will come an easing of conscience. And I should like to point out further that whenever you are disquieted by this relationship, remember that by accepting whatever measure of suffering, that you are doing it for your daughters vicariously and generously. It will steel you and nerve you as nothing else can do. You're doing this for them. And if you're troubled at times, you can accept it, because you are sacrificing in a measure for them. And I believe that in the light of divine forgiveness and the acceptance of this responsibility, that you can carry along with a measure of happiness and sharing such as you certainly deserve.
If the lady will accept that, I would certainly withdraw any possible suggestion. It's only the depth of her concern that worries me, for I entirely agree with what Mr. Foster has said in regard to the morals of the case.
Well, Mr. Thomas, it was because there was depth to her concern and there was a disagreement that she wanted the objective judgment of this board. And I think that after considering all aspects of this matter, the board is of the opinion that 30 years of devotion and loyalty do constitute a marriage, and notwithstanding the anxiety of the wife, I think it is felt, everything considered, that to raise this point or do anything about it in a practical way with all the hazards involved after 30 years would be an extremely questionable thing to do. In these particular circumstances, it is thought perhaps it would be better to let sleeping dogs lie. Said Byron, "What is life? It is the pendulum between a smile and a tear." Now here is an ever-recurring story of life as old as time and yet always new. The story of the unpredictable in the relationship of one human being with another. You are now about to witness an actual mediation proceeding with both sides, the actual persons involved, agreeing to abide by the decision. Now here are the members of our board whom these people have elected to serve as their judges in this matter of controversy. Honorable Anna M. Cross, Dr. Paul Dawson Eddy, Honorable Edward Corsi. Judge Cross and gentlemen, here is a confused situation which can be clarified, I think, by a little detached judgment to take the place of strong emotions and sensitive feelings. Now here is the complainant daughter.
Members of the board and Mr. Alexander, I'm here because I'd like to know what a daughter can do about a mother who feels that it's her right to interfere in every phase of my life without any exception. I'm 20 years old and I'm professional, and I'm with professional people practically all the time. But my mother feels that she has the right to be with me at every minute of the day, of the night, and travel with me and be with me at every second. I have no time.
Can you give us an example or several examples?
Well, as far as traveling is concerned, for instance, there are times when I'm called out of town to fill an engagement. My mother feels that it's her privilege, and she jumps at the chance. She drops everything and wants to be with me. She gives me no privacy, no chance to be an individual, to be myself at my age. And even in my house, I have no chance. We have a very small apartment. If I want to have people in, my mother says no, she won't leave me alone. She won't even leave me in the same room with someone. This makes it very embarrassing for me and very awkward.
Suppose you meet someone in the street.
Well, if the case arises where I do meet somebody in the street, and this happens very often, and I tell my mother that I'd like to have her meet him, and then perhaps maybe a chance to be alone, she won't let me be alone with him. She feels that perhaps I'll do something wrong, and believe me, I certainly won't.
Now what is it that you want to have settled?
Well, what I'd like to have settled, if I possibly can, is, do you think that, as you look at me, that I am too immature to be able to take care of myself on most things and certain things? Or do you think that my mother is right, that she has the right to make all my decisions for me and not give me a chance to do anything by myself?
Well, suppose we hear from the mother.
Mr. Alexander, I feel that my daughter is definitely wrong.
Why?
Well, parents don't bear children and bring children into the world to neglect them and not to take care of them for their best interest.
Well, when your daughter meets young men, for example, that's only one aspect of it, but when she meets young men, what do you feel? What is your reaction?
Well, I feel I like to know about them and who they are. I like to check on them. I feel I have a right to know what it's all about, where they go.
Why do you feel that you have that right?
Well, after all, I am an interested parent, and especially having to be mother and father to my daughter since I am a widow, and I don't feel that she knows as much about this world as I do, and I'd like to be able to help her.
Do you think you'd be a deficient or negligent parent if you sort of turned your back and didn't pay any attention to what she was doing?
Yes, I believe I would. There are very interested parents, and I feel that I have lived my life, and I've gone through certain phases, and I feel that my child should realize that I'm her best friend and I have her best interest at heart. And
she's pretty important to you.
she is very important to me. She's the first thing in my life. She's the most important thing in my life. As a matter of fact, she is my life.
Well, I think that my mother is right in some of the things that she feels. And I think that she feels that she's doing the best for me. But what she doesn't realize is that instead of helping me, she's harming me by not giving me a chance to be able to do certain things by myself. I feel that there are parts of life that perhaps she can help me with, but I feel I'm a young woman, and I should be able to have a certain amount of independence to take care of myself.
Well, what is it that your daughter, in your opinion, forgets?
Well, I feel that my daughter forgets that I have her best interest at heart, that I'm anxious to see that she gets ahead in this world in the proper way. I hope that she realizes that what I want to say is important and that everything I try to do is for her benefit.
Well, specifically, do you feel that your daughter should benefit by your experience?
She definitely should benefit by my experience.
Have you had opportunities of one kind or another in life?
Oh, yes, Mr. Alexander. I've had fabulous opportunities where I could feather my nest. These things I've more or less had to turn my back on.
See, what she doesn't realize is that with me, because of her wonderful training, I feel that I'm mature enough to be able to do certain things by myself. I feel that just as a child must know its place when it's a child, there comes a certain time in life where she must realize, and by the same token, her mother must realize that she's now a woman, that she can make certain decisions by herself and live a life that is the proper life for a girl her age.
Dr. Eddy?
Well, I think as parents, we do want to share our experience and guide our children, but we also have to realize that the only way that they will learn to manage their own lives when we're gone or when they're out in the world is to give them the opportunity of making decisions within the areas that are appropriate at the time or at the age, and to make decisions and plans for themselves and to really trust them. You know, if we've done a good job for the first 15 years in a child's life, the chances are we can trust them to go on the way and to find their way and to come to us when they need counsel and guidance, so that they do not feel that we really don't trust them, that we're afraid, or that we ourselves have such anxiety and our experience has perhaps been bitter, and therefore we want to save our children from that, but you really can't save them.
Is that right, Judge Cross?
Well, there's no question about it, you know. This presents the picture that sometimes is called the silver cord. Parents can't forever keep their children on under observation or so closely tied to them that they hamper them and hamstring them. And I think this young woman displays a great deal of maturity when she recognizes at the age of 20 that her responsibility is to look out for herself, and in doing that, not neglect her mother. I don't think she is thinking of neglecting her mother, but rather giving her mother a certain relief, as it were, from that sense of responsibility. And I think every mother must start in realizing that she has to fill her life sufficiently that when her child goes out on her own, she won't be lost. And I say that, I think one of our weaknesses in bringing up children today is that we don't make them recognize responsibility early enough. I think children should be made to understand their responsibility almost from starting going to school. So I fully agree with the young woman of her right and need for her own protection as well as for the future security and happiness of a mother, that she be given the opportunity to now paddle her own canoe, as it were.
Commissioner?
Well, I agree entirely with my colleagues this time. I think that there are really no two views about this. There's nothing more admirable than the companionship and the guidance that a mother would give a daughter. But you can overdo those things. You can go to such extremes as to invite contradictory results. You may invite frustrations and a feeling of dependency. And then there's another very important point here. It seems to me that when a mother is so much concerned about a daughter who's 20 years of age, in protecting her against temptations or mistakes and so on, she really makes herself the prisoner of the situation. You are a prisoner of your daughter. You do not trust your daughter. And your love for her is circumscribed by this fear that you have that she's unable to take care of herself. She's 20 years of age. And I think she should be given freedom to develop her initiative, her ability to depend on herself, and to be a person in her own right.
Well, to sum up the opinion of this board, it has often been stated, but considering the number of situations of this kind and the misunderstandings that exist in this regard, you know, I think it's so hard for mothers to understand why it is that this affection and this devotion they give from their heart of hearts, why that isn't a good thing. So the board restates that the purpose of a parent, as has been stated here again tonight, is to train a child to cope with the conditions of life, as Dr. Eddy has so eloquently pointed out, and Judge Cross and Commissioner Corsi. The purpose is to cooperate with the child by helping him or her to stand on his own feet and develop a sense of independence, that once that is done, outside of such helpful guidance as might be reasonable, there is little more that the parent should feel required or obligated to do.